Thomas Moretti had planned this backpacking trip for months, an escape from city life and an excuse to immerse himself in Oregon's lush wilderness. He'd saved up vacation days, studied trail maps, and read gear reviews. At 28, he was fairly new to backcountry hiking, but he yearned for the serenity of towering evergreens and winding trails. So, in late July, he flew to Portland, rented a car, and drove 2 hours east into the mountains. He parked at a trailhead known for scenic overlooks and began trekking north. The first day was uneventful, full of postcard-perfect views. Pine needle paths, sunlight filtering through tall fir trees, the distant rush of a creek. He set up camp near a gentle river, lulled to sleep by the current. Early the next morning, he continued deeper, following an unmarked route recommended by an online hiking forum. It was said to offer solitude away from touristy spots. The forest canopy grew denser, the floor softer. As the hours passed, a subtle sense of isolation took hold. Thomas's phone signal dropped to nothing, which he'd expected. He felt a thrill at being off-grid. By mid-afternoon, he found a small clearing for his second campsite. Overhead, gray clouds gathered, promising a drizzle. Unbothered, he pitched his tent, listening to distant birds. Night fell quickly, the cloudy sky blotting out starlight. He used his headlamp to read a paperback in the tent. Around 11 p.m., an unsettled feeling tugged at him, like being watched. He tried to ignore it, blaming the typical nerves of solo camping. Suddenly, through the tent's thin wall, he saw a faint red glow flicker among the trees. He sat upright, heart quickening. A tower's aircraft warning light? That made no sense. The nearest official lookout tower or structure, from what he knew, was miles away. Yet the glow was there, blinking softly every few seconds. He unzipped the tent, stepping out into the cool forest air. Squinting, he confirmed a red blink far beyond the tree line, an intermittent flash that cut through the gloom. It looked like it came from a tall structure, but none should be in these remote woods. Curiosity mingled with wariness. After a moment's debate, he decided to check it out in daylight. He returned to the tent, forcing himself to sleep. Despite the strangeness, exhaustion overtook him. But in the silence before dawn, that red light pulsed in the back of his mind like a silent beacon. He woke to a light drizzle. Packing up quickly, he headed in the red light's general direction. The forest here was dense, ground covered in thick undergrowth. The drizzle turned to mist, clinging to pines and ferns. Occasional crows cawed overhead. After an hour, he saw the blinking again, faintly through the mist. He pressed on, pushing aside wet branches. Then, unexpectedly, he stumbled into a clearing. In its center stood a radio tower, an old structure of steel girders, perhaps 200 feet high. Rust streaked its beams. A single red light atop the spire blinked methodically. The towers soared above the treetops, incongruous and eerie. No fences or signage indicated who built it. At its base, tall grass and vines covered old cables. A battered metal shack squatted nearby. Thomas stared, baffled. This tower wasn't on any topographic map. Usually, such towers had an access road or were maintained. Yet this looked abandoned for decades, or maybe longer. The rust, the overgrowth, how was it still powered? The blinking light demanded electricity, but from where? He approached cautiously. The hum of static filled the air, like distant radio waves. His skin prickled. He circled the tower's base, checking for a power line or generator. No lines were visible, just twisted cables half buried. Yet the tower's top light kept blinking, unnervingly steady. Near the tower's base sat the metal shack. Its door was ajar, revealing darkness inside. Thomas's first instinct was to avoid it, but curiosity won. He parted the door, shining his flashlight. A pungent smell of musty air rushed out. Inside, he found an old control panel with dusty dials, a battered desk scattered with radio equipment, and a single stool. A thick layer of grime coated everything. The equipment looked archaic, maybe from the 1950s or 1960s. Broken vacuum tubes lay on the floor. One small radio dial glowed faintly green, despite the rest of the power apparently dead. Thomas's pulse quickened. A crackling static emanated from a speaker on the console. It was faint, but definitely there. He tried the dials, but they seemed rusted in place. The static rose in waves, but no clear station came through. Then, briefly, a burst of garbled noise teased at words, only to vanish back into static. The sense of intrusion overwhelmed him. This place shouldn't exist. It's not on any map. Yet, it's alive. A flicker of movement in the shack's corner made him jump. It was just a spider scuttling away. Letting out a shaky breath, he left the shack, uneasy. The radio static followed him out. Outside, he decided to see if his phone or any device could pick up a signal. Unsurprisingly, zero cell service. Then he recalled a small AM/FM radio built into his multi-tool, a novelty he rarely used. Fishing it out of his pack, he switched it on, scanning channels. Usually, in the wilderness, he'd get little to nothing. But here, near the tower, a station crackled to life on an unmarked frequency. The signal was weak but audible. He heard static-laden breathing, then a faint hum. No music, no typical radio show, just a low hiss. Weird. He turned the dial, trying for clarity. Then, through the static, he caught words. He's in front of the tower now. He sees the shack. The voice was male, distant, half lost in the hiss. Confusion sparked. The man's words matched what Thomas was doing. Was it describing him? He froze, heart thumping. Another sentence. He can't believe it's still running. Thomas's chest tightened. This was describing his exact thoughts. He fumbled with the volume, and the voice continued, disjointed but unmistakable. He wonders how it's powered, wonders if he should climb the ladder. Thomas nearly dropped the radio. He was considering climbing the tower to investigate. It was reading his mind, or something terrifyingly close. The static then surged, and the voice cut off. He stepped back, trembling. The tower's red light blinked overhead. Then the radio hissed again. Shouldn't stay. He swallowed, turning off the device. The message was clear enough. He shouldn't remain here. But how was the station reading his thoughts, describing his actions? Fear and rational sense clashed in his mind. This defied everything he knew of physics. He decided to leave. The place felt wrong, as though something was intruding on his consciousness. He grabbed his pack, hurried into the tree line. The final glimpse of that tower's rusted structure and blinking light made his stomach churn. Hours passed as he retraced his route, or tried to. But the landscape seemed unfamiliar. The forest felt denser. The drizzle turned to rain, muffling his sense of direction. He double-checked his compass. North was north, but the trail he once used was gone or overgrown. Over time, he realized he must have taken a wrong turn. Dusk approached. The gloom thickened. He cursed his poor luck. Another night in these woods. He found a clearing to pitch his tent. Sleep was fitful, haunted by dreams of static-laced voices describing his every thought. He woke multiple times, convinced he heard faint radio chatter among the trees. Morning dawned, gray and wet. He resumed searching for the main trail. Midday came with no success. Then, heartbreakingly, as he crested a small ridge, he saw the radio tower again through the trees. He'd circled back. The same clearing, the same tower. The red light blinked stoically, as if mocking him. An unsettling realization. He's stuck. Or the forest rearranged. Or the tower had some gravitational pull, guiding him back. He debated physically smashing the equipment in the shack, but a gnawing fear said that might provoke something worse. No choice but to investigate more thoroughly. The tower's presence overshadowed everything. He approached the shack again, stepping inside. The smell of damp metal greeted him. The console still glowed faintly. Suddenly, He noticed a metal filing cabinet in the corner he'd overlooked before. Forced by desperation, he pried it open. Inside, he found old logbooks, their pages yellowed. Flicking through, he saw dates from 1954 to 1961. They contained cryptic entries about transmissions, some referencing field observations, others listing names of hikers or passersby. One repeated phrase was, "Assimilation commenced." Another line read, "The station is thought." He shivered. The final pages were scrawled with shaky handwriting. "We must keep broadcasting their thoughts. It's how they sustain the tower. We do not belong. We are channels." The last page ended abruptly with splotches of ink. He rummaged further. A photograph fell out. It showed a group of men in 1950s attire standing by the newly erected tower. Their expressions were grim, and in the background, the red light was unlit. On the back, in pencil, "Built for, not for us." As he digested this, the console crackled. The radio station found new clarity, the voice soft but urgent. He's reading the logs. He understands the tower's hunger. Now he wonders if he can break it? Thomas swallowed. The voice was describing his thoughts again. Fear turned to anger. This tower is messing with me. He stepped outside, glancing at the tower's ladder rising up its side. Maybe disabling the light at the top would end it, or if he cut cables. The voice resumed. He thinks of destroying the light. He shouldn't. It will only anger it. The last phrase chilled him. Anger it? Despite the warning, he resolved to climb. The metal ladder clung to the tower's frame, rust flaking under his grip. He ascended slowly, about 50 feet, 70, the wind picking up as the trees shrank below. The hum of static grew in his ears, or maybe it was just the wind whistling. Halfway up, his radio crackled in his pack. He paused to listen. The voice whispered, "Stop. Go down." He set his jaw, continuing upward. Then the ladder shuddered. For a moment, he feared it might collapse. Rust bits rained down, but he held on. At last, near the top, the red beacon blinked, close enough to touch. He perched on a small platform, panting. In front of him was a metal housing for the light, wires leading downward. He rummaged for his multi-tool, determined to sever them. A sudden screech of feedback blasted from his radio, making him jerk. Over the howling wind, the voice spat. "You should not." Then the static roared. Thomas gripped the multi-tool, ignoring the tremor in his hands. He pried open the housing, exposing corroded wires. The red light pulsed, almost alive. He pinched a wire, pulling it free. Sparks flew, burning his finger. The red light flickered. At that moment, a shriek, not from the radio, but from behind him, nearly made him lose his grip. Balance. He twisted, seeing a figure clinging to the tower a few rungs below, human-like, yet its face impossible to discern in the swarming gloom. It wore a torn ranger uniform or something similar, but the features were a blur. It lunged upward, elongated arm reaching for him. Panic seized him. He yanked another wire. The light sputtered. The figure let out a guttural moan, climbing with inhuman speed. Thomas kicked out, foot slamming the figure's hand. A feeling of cold seared him. Desperate, he severed the last wire he could see. The beacon's glow died. In that instant, the entire tower vibrated, a monstrous hum resonating through the steel. The figure below screeched in anguish. The radio in Thomas's pack crackled violently. He glimpsed the shape melt down the ladder, retreating or dissolving. The environment around him spun with raw energy, as if the tower roared at losing power. Thomas clung on, heart pounding. Gradually, the vibrations subsided. Silence descended. The tower, now unlit, felt like a dead husk. The figure was gone, presumably. He climbed down, each rung precarious. At the bottom, the hum was gone. No more steady static, just the hush of wind among pines. He glanced at the shack. Dark inside, no glow. He dared not go in. Instead, he backed away, once again hearing no voice. Relief washed over him. Tired and battered, he ventured into the woods, hoping to find the original trail. This time, the forest paths seemed more coherent. He discovered a faint footpath that led him to a small stream. Following it, he eventually found markers matching the route from which he'd come days before. The sense of oppressive confusion lifted. As dusk neared, he located a campsite near a recognized trail. He collapsed, half laughing with relief. Sleep was uneasy but dreamless. By dawn, he pressed onward, encountering day hikers who confirmed he was only a few miles from a known ranger station. When he stumbled into the ranger station that afternoon, the staff raised eyebrows of his disheveled state. He recounted a heavily edited tale. He'd become lost, found a derelict tower. They seemed puzzled, claiming no operational tower existed in that area. The nearest known tower was far away, not at all like he described. He insisted they check. They humored him, scanning old records and topographical data. No mention of any tower in that location. One older ranger said a rumor existed about a shortwave transmitter from the 1950s, built for clandestine research, abandoned after weird incidents, but he dismissed it as folklore. Thomas realized explaining about hearing his thoughts broadcast or seeing that inhuman figure would only cast him as insane. He kept those details private. He thanked them, got a ride to the nearest town. Within days, he was back in city life, but the experience haunted him. He had nightmares of the tower's red light blinking in a dark forest, the radio's voice describing his every move. He tried searching online. Abandoned radio tower, Oregon. Tower that reads thoughts. He found only conspiracy theories and tangential references. He emailed the local ranger station, describing the rough coordinates, begging them to investigate. Their polite reply stated they found no such structure at that location. Possibly he was off by many miles or confused. They apologized but had no leads. Weeks later, on a late-night drive near his home, he flicked through FM stations absent-mindedly. One channel crackled with static. Then a voice emerged. He wonders if the tower is still out there. The voice was faint, matching his own tone. Heart-dropping, he nearly drove off the road. Frantically switching the station, he found nothing. The moment was brief, perhaps a glitch or hallucination, but it revived all the dread. He realized the tower's influence might not have ended entirely. A portion of its presence lingered in him or in the radio waves. Months passed. Thomas moved states, trying to bury the memory. But an acquaintance forwarded him a blog post from an amateur hiker. They claimed to have found a bizarre radio shack in Oregon's wilderness, with old gear that sometimes hummed with static. The blogger fled after hearing a voice mimic their own. The final line read, "If you find the tower, do not climb it. The broadcast sees your thoughts." Thomas felt a cold wave of recognition. So, the tower might still exist, might still be luring the curious. He wrestled with guilt. Had severing the wires truly ended it, or had he just awakened it in a new form? He debated returning, finishing the job, destroying the entire tower. But terror held him back. He recalled the shape that climbed the ladder, the unstoppable force. Some abominations defied closure. Ultimately, he decided to keep silent, hoping the tower would remain isolated, undiscovered by mainstream crowds. Occasionally, he had the sense that the tower was still scanning the air for him, searching for a mental signature to lock onto. He avoided rural roads, rarely hiked alone anymore. Over time, the memory dimmed, but never vanished. He'd watch the sky at night, half expecting to see a faint red blink on the horizon. He never did. Yet, every so often, an unexplained static on the radio or a whispered phrase on a blank frequency would jar him awake at night, heart pounding. He wondered how many travelers might stumble upon that rusted structure, lured by the blinking red beacon or by the hush of the forest. And if they do, will they heed the warnings scrawled in old logbooks? Or will they climb, letting the tower feed on their thoughts? In the hush of Oregon's deep woods, the tower stands, an anomaly of rust and static, broadcasting secrets. For those who find it, the radio tower that shouldn't exist, the advice is simple. Do not listen to the voice, because once it reads your thoughts, there may be no escape from its